Y'all know my channel is full of simple, non-controversial topics, so I figured, hey, I should totally make a video about, abortion.
Before we even get into this video, I would just like to say that I made this specifically because I am okay with whatever opinion you have about abortion. Personally, I think that people need to be calm and listen to each other. However, Laci Green is such a biased hypocrite that she likes to misrepresent everyone's opinions and completely say that her one subjective opinion about abortion is objective fact and that no one is allowed to dispute something. Abortion is a very highly controversial topic, which is why I'm doing this.
Ah, man, where do I even start? Houston, we have a problem. The majority of Americans believe in the legal right to an abortion, particularly before 28 weeks of pregnancy. And
The majority? You sure about that? Because it sounds kind of like 50-50.
since 1973, that's been the law, thanks to a Supreme Court case called Roe v. Wade. You've probably heard of it. Fast forward to 2016, and Roe v. Wade is being effectively overturned.
I would just like to take this opportunity to point out the fact that overturned and dismantled aren't necessarily the same thing.
I don't want to make anyone panic, but actually everyone should panic. In many parts of the US, abortion has been made so difficult to obtain that it's effectively the same as if it were illegal.
Citation needed.
I know what you're thinking. How does that happen? Aren't our rights protected? No, as it turns out. Our troubles began in 1992.
I love how she acts like everyone thinks this is a problem.
While 3-year-old me was hoarding Fruit Loops in my onesies, the Supreme Court ruled that states could pass restrictions on abortion. But those restrictions couldn't present an undue burden to obtaining one. Now the question is, what counts as an undue burden? What does that even mean? States were given a lot of leeway for their own interpretations and went on to pass nearly 1,000 restrictions on abortion.
What do you mean by 1,000? Like total or per state? Or like, that's not very specific, Laci.
Here's the state of abortion in the US right now, as of today. 25 states have mandatory, medically unnecessary ultrasounds. 3 of those states require you to look at the image while the doctor describes it in detail.
You do realize that abortion is the act of destroying that fetus before it's born, right? So if they show you a medical ultrasound of the baby before you do it, all they're really showing you is just kind of what you're going to be destroying. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that if you do have an abortion, you're going to be destroying it, so what's your point? It's kind of just showing you what's going to happen.
33 states have mandatory waiting periods. 20 states have bans that could outlaw abortion as early as 12 weeks. 13 states have near total bans.
I would just like to take this time to say that she said near total bans, which sounds kind of vague and like she's trying to avoid describing exactly what she means by near total bans.
On abortion. 11 states are funding crisis pregnancy centers, which set up shop next to real health clinics and deliberately mislead and lie to people about abortion.
Holy shit, Laci, this is actually getting a little scary. So I decided to actually check out your sources and see where you got this information. Alright guys, here we go. Okay, let's click on the one that's about state laws for abortion per state. Here we go. Oh, pro-choice America. Yeah, that sounds pretty damn biased, Laci.
4 states have barred financial assistance for the poor, and federal funding's completely banned under the Hyde Amendment.
Okay, Hyde Amendment. Let's go see what it is. Okay, here we go. Oh. Laci? Really? Yeah, I'm not saying that you're necessarily lying about this, but I'm saying you really need to find less biased sources.
44 states have laws regulating irrelevant things like the width of clinic hallways. What this means is that abortion clinics in the US are being closed faster than you can say, "Get out of my vagina." 87% of counties in the US now have no abortion clinic.
You even gonna take the time to describe which county it might be? Because I have a feeling it might be something to do with, I don't know, Alabama.
In 5 states, there's only 1 clinic.
Which states? And is by chance one of them Rhode Island? I mean, seriously, evidence! Evidence, Laci!
As many as 240,000 women in Texas have already attempted to end a pregnancy on her own. Did we just travel back in time like 100 years? Back when 5,000 women died every year as a direct result of abortion being illegal?
Which was a temporary thing that only lasted for about 100 years and is considered probably one of the worst times in human history.
Back in the days of coat hangers, back alley abortions, and black market drugs, that's where we're headed. And for some areas, that's where we are. Don't worry though, the story gets way worse. 2 months ago, a self-described warrior for babies opened fire at a Planned Parenthood in Colorado, killing 3 people, to which some responded like this. What makes this extreme mentality terrifying is that if a person is ignorant enough to think that a grown human being and a blastocyst have the same sentience and thusly the same rights, that person just might not see a moral problem with killing the grown human being.
I love how you equate everyone in the pro-life movement to believing that was okay and that it was a good thing to do. No. There are several people like me who are pro-life who are absolutely appalled by what that man did.
They call themselves pro-life, however, they are anything but that.
In your subjective opinion.
If they cared about life, certainly they'd care about female death.
We do care about women. Also, I'd also like to point out the fact that the majority of people against abortion are Christian women. I'll leave a link in the description below for anyone who wants to see.
Certainly they wouldn't use violence, and yet since 1977, nearly 7,000 acts of violence have been reported at abortion clinics. 182 arson attacks, 42 bombings, 17 attempted murders, 8 completed murders.
And since you're a third-wave feminist, I dare you to go to the Muslim world and see how much better things are there. It doesn't excuse what these people did, but it certainly does prove how much of a biased person you really are.
Anti-choicers are also not trying to end abortion.
What? What?
Policies known to reduce the abortion rate. Sex education, condom access, birth control access, emergency contraception access.
And this is something I totally agree with, and I've actually seen statistics that prove this. Now, I know that I've been disagreeing with her on a lot of things, however, at the beginning of the video I told you that I just hate how biased she is and how she has an influence over young girls. So when she makes a good point, I will acknowledge it.
That these politicians have fought to block literally all of those policies, instead offering us abstinence-only education known to increase the number of unintended pregnancies.
Like I said earlier, if she makes a good point, I will acknowledge it. However, she said abstinence-only education was the option that most pro-lifers are going for, which is not the case. While abstinence-only education is endorsed by some and is shown to be ineffective, most of us do not believe in it in schools.
Now, I am not good at math, y'all, but something here does not add up. This movement doesn't give a shit about life, about babies, definitely not about women, so...
In your subjective opinion, Laci. Also, remember, majority of people who are against abortion are Christian women. Christian women.
What's really going on here? The real motive of the self-described pro-life movement is a politicized attack on sex, and more specifically on female sexuality. The underlying belief is that sex is only for procreation. It's a woman's duty to have babies. A woman who has sex for pleasure and not for babies has broken the rules. She's sinned, and now she has to face the consequences of her actions. Consequences being pregnancy and childbirth. The irony is that nearly 3/4 of women who have an abortion are already mothers and can't afford another child. So
Laci, have you ever heard of the term adoption? Because that tends to be a pretty good solution if you're just a single mother. Also, there are these things called safe haven laws, which allow you to basically drop off an infant at basically a hospital or a police office, and it becomes a ward of the state. Don't even have to go through paperwork. So if you're a single mother who can't afford a child, and that's your only reason, it's not because you might die during pregnancy, then that's a good option.
let's contrast this with the reproductive justice movement, otherwise known as pro-choice.
See how she equates the pro-choice movement, which she's a part of, as the only correct movement? I'm not saying she doesn't have the right to believe what she wants to believe, but I'm saying that I'm getting annoyed that she thinks she's the only one who's right.
The underlying belief of pro-choice is that people have a right to control their own body and their reproduction. The right to life does not mean that fetuses or anybody else has a right to survive off of your body against your will. Philosophically, the right to our own body is so imperative, it's just so central to our understanding of ourselves that people will take drastic measures, including putting their health and their lives on the line in order to preserve their autonomy, even when governments try to take it away. This has been the case all throughout history.
Actually, throughout most of history, abortion was kind of looked at as pretty much okay, so you're lying through your teeth.
This is why the reproductive justice movement asserts that not only should abortion be legal, but it also needs to be safe and accessible. This reduces the overall harm to individuals and to society. Now look, the pro-choice movement can't compete with doctored photos, crocodile tears.
So what you're saying is that everyone who's pro-life is just making it up. God, you're such a hypocrite.
But it's important to understand that this is just propaganda, and it's propaganda that's made effective by the fact that a lot of people are scientifically illiterate and they're easily manipulated emotionally. The
Hello, Kettle. My name is Pot. You're black.
only conclusion that a halfway reasonable person can draw about the pro-life movement is that they're seeking state control over primarily women's bodies and lives in ways that are medically unnecessary, patronizing, and invasive.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The only conclusion that a halfway reasonable person can draw about the pro-life movement is that they're seeking state control over primarily women's bodies and lives in ways that are medically unnecessary, patronizing, and invasive.
See what I meant about that bias? No, Laci, this is just your own bias coming out now.
This is a deliberate attack on women, and by extension, it's an attack on anyone who can get pregnant. It is a deliberate attack on women who are poor, who are disproportionately women of color. Without reproductive choice, gender equality cannot and will not be achieved, and that is exactly their point.
You know, just because you say words doesn't make them true.
This is where we come in, Sex Plus fam. This year, 469 seats are up for grabs in the election.
Aha, so the true meaning behind this video is revealed. It's all one big political message.
460, that's a lot. Crucially, most of these seats belong to the politicians who have been passing all these restrictions. Obviously, electing a good president is imperative, not just because of their leadership and veto power, but also because as many as 4 Supreme Court justices may need appointed during this president's term. But the Senate has to approve the president's appointments. So
I hate to subject you guys to her face any more than necessary, but take a look at the type of images she put in the background.
obviously, electing a good president is imperative, not just because of their leadership and veto power, but also because as many as 4 Supreme Court justices may need appointed during this president's term. But the Senate has to approve the president's appointments. So
Projecting it all, are we, Laci?
election is not just about the president. The Senate and the House of Representatives are just as important. Just as important. This is our chance to get the vote out at all levels of government, because that is where this is happening. That should be the #1 priority this year. The #2 priority is to support those who have been fighting in and out every day on the front lines trying to maintain our rights. I'm gonna put a bunch of links below. Please check them out. Please support them in any way you can. I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts and flame wars to start, so don't waste any time. Get to it down below.
Are you actually telling people to get into angry debates like flame wars and hate each other, Laci?
If you want to keep in touch during election year, subscribe for more videos. Yes, I did just say please subscribe. I am the YouTube devil. I'll go sit in time out now. I love y'all, be well, and I'll see you next week with more Sex Plus. Mwah.
Well, guys, the rest of her video really is just her advertising herself, so I'm just gonna end it there for her. But guys, I think at this point we can just assume that Laci Green does not respect the autonomy of a woman or a man, or just about anyone who disagrees with her totalitarian opinions. You can have whatever opinion you like about abortion, and if you would like, tell me exactly what you think. Even if you're going to make a hateful comment, I invite freedom of speech. But please, know that she is so biased, it's ridiculous.